Hello and welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piskor.
And Cartoonist Kayfabe is brought to you by the comics that Ed and I make. Ed Piskor's Red Room Trigger Warnings and Red Room The Antisocial Network are in stores now. Murder on the Dark Web for Fun and Profit. Each of these books contains 4 complete stories that can be read in any order, so whichever volume you encounter first is the perfect place to start with Red Room. Street Angel, Deadliest Girl Alive, back in print after almost a year from Image Comics. 8 full-color complete stories of the Deadliest Girl Alive, the homeless ninja on a skateboard, perfect for any superhero fan or action comics fan in your life, and Hulk Grand Design Monster Madness. The comic books are in comic shops now, available while supplies last. The treasury-sized fluorescent green edition will be in stores in early 2023. Pre-order that now if you want to make sure that you get a copy. And now, onto our feature comic. Wolverine number 10. Ed, the second comic book I bought when I started buying comics. This is not my original. My original ended up going out with The Purge, so this is one that I actually got later and beat up accordingly. The only difference would be mine would have had the barcode because I bought it at a gas station near my house.
Jim, you have no sentimentality.
I don't, man. No sentimentality at all. But what I do have is Bill Sienkiewicz on the cover. Amazing. Like, look at that drawing compared to your typical Marvel House style and what I think of as like feathering and stuff. So kind of a super amazing, great cover. Even the orange and the logo and the coat, super sharp. And then you open it up and it's John Buscema and Bill Sienkiewicz as your artist. And the reason that I note that is one of probably the first 5 or 6 comic related, comics or books about comics that I got, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, featuring John Buscema. So like, I'm connecting dots, man, within the first few weeks of reading comics and wanting to draw them myself. It was like, this is awesome. I've got the book of How to Do Marvel Comics. I've got a Marvel comic by the guy who did the book. I was off and running. And you can kind of see, man, Buscema already throwing his weight around, twisting these figures out, hitting it with action to start out with. And Chris Claremont doing the writing. So I didn't know it at the time, but of course, longtime Wolverine writer through X-Men.
Yeah, man. And in this one, we play with time a lot.
We do.
So it's now and then, and unfortunately, color doesn't help us denote the past and present.
I had a heck of a time trying to figure this out in the early days of me reading comics. I'd read my couple of comics like we always talk about. You had at some point I had a shoebox when I had about this many comics. Just read the same comics over and over. And the now and then was so confusing to me.
Yeah, like especially as a kid, you're so literal. And it's kind of like, it all feels like of one piece. But you need that color to take us out of the moment so that it is beyond the shadow of a doubt a different point in time.
Yes, and this day in question is Logan's birthday, so that's why we're flashing back to, I guess, a really bad birthday where Sabretooth killed his girl.
It may or may not have already been established in the back pages of classic X-Men. There is a classic backup that Claremont and John Bolton did, where on Wolverine's birthday, and I think if I remember right, it shows it like throughout the years. It's like Tag Your It or something it's called, and like Sabretooth will just show up on his birthday and just like slash his back, no matter where he is in the universe. Like, he can put a patch on his eye and hang out in Madripoor. Sabretooth is going to come up, slash the shit out of you, and then just leave.
When you're a kid, that makes total sense. As an adult, like, I'm picturing Madripoor was like at about 16 hours of plane riding from here. Really impossible to track somebody down there. But of course, like you say, this is the birthdays, so Sabretooth is going to be there.
He's got hyper sense of smell.
This doesn't help anything either, that we're doing our flashbacks one panel on a page.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really strange choice to make.
One of those consequences of just like, you got 22 pages, like we don't have the benefits of giving you a whole moment per page. Like, we got to just get it in where we fit it in.
Yeah, I guess so. So it's midnight, which I guess starts his official birthday celebration. He breaks up a fight in the bar, which is something I think you might see in the first 10 issues of Wolverine. Every issue, there's a fight in the bar.
How awesome is that for depth of field, man? Bill Sienkiewicz choosing to just use kind of like a grease pencil on the toothy vellum Bristol to give you that sense of atmosphere.
Yeah, we've often used the word soupy to describe some of the atmospheres, and I feel like there's a real soupiness in this stuff.
It's so fun to look at this because you see the little pieces of Buscema, mostly in the faces, And oftentimes, like in the kind of the drapery, but it's just, you know, it's that greater than the sum of its parts kind of collaboration.
Yeah, and I had no point of reference early on for this. Like I look at it now, and it's amazing to see what these two do together. I think it's a great team, and they do the next 6 issues, where I think Buscema might be credited as breakdowns and finishes by Sienkiewicz, I think. But if you look close, it's like this is cross-hatched. It's almost just a black shadow on Wolverine's leg, but you look close, and it's these super fine lines, and I always wonder, like, why that short? You know, like a lot of this stuff, it's probably just you're doing it quickly, but I do wonder, like stuff like this where Wolverine's being thrown through this bar, and it's the black is broken up with equivalent of speed lines, but just enough to show him passing through that black and breaking up that negative space a little bit.
Like that facial construction, unmistakable John Buscema right there.
Right, and when you see his pencils, that's what it feels like, where there's, like, the volume is what is defined in those pencils, and so if you hand that off to somebody like Sienkiewicz that also understands that stuff, you get, again, these super fine kind of hatching to bring that lip out. And so back in the present, Wolverine steps in on a couple of sailors that are on leave from a ship docked in Madripoor, and they've stumbled into an adventure that's a little more than they bargained for, so has to stop some of these locals from killing these two.
Yeah, it's a little bit of Chris Claremont trying to play with that Alan Moore transition stuff. So Sabretooth raped and killed the chick, the girlfriend of Wolverine, and is like, I don't take no for an answer type shit. So then, like, the present day is like a modern day, like, attempt at causing some trauma to a lady.
The Claremont writing isms are really funny throughout this. It's almost a Shakespeare kind of writing, except it's like dudes on the ground level, you know, the ultimate ground level of where that doesn't make sense.
Right. Yeah. At least when you know, when what's his face uses iambic pentameter, you know, Dave Mamet, he's at least, you know, using the word fuck and shit like that.
Yeah, and it's different when people are saying it out loud, too. I feel like that makes a difference. You know, like reading this stuff, it's just like, wow, this is funny.
But it's the crazy stuff because Claremont talks that way.
These Buscema figures are great.
Yeah, yeah, and you could tell. Like, there's a part where it's like, is that Gene Colan? But like, nah, that's totally Buscema.
Yeah, with a little bit of probably the Sienkiewicz interpretation, but the shadows of all these figures, just, that stuff's magic to me.
Yeah.
Really big fan of it. And, well, let's cut back to a little bit more of the Wolverine Sabretooth fight. And Sabretooth is pretty much at this time considered just, he's going to destroy Wolverine, doesn't have a chance.
Who's your daddy?
Yeah. And they're in Lowtown in Madripoor, very far from the hospital. Ambulances don't even come there, so where do you take your stabbed victim? To the brothel.
Do the war?
It's not just prostitutes with hearts of gold. They also have a medical bag next to the bed.
Listen, it's like the Old Town chicks, you know.
That's right.
They hook up Dwight and stuff.
Where did these tropes get established?
What's the timeline of like these Wolverine comics too? Because you know how they try to have the shared universe Marvel shit. He's running around with the X-Men, so like, is this shit 20 years ago?
This is considered present because he's supposed to be dead. The world believes he's dead. And I'm thinking it's around like the X-Men, like the 260, whatever the fill-in that Jim Lee does where Psylocke returns. Right. I think it's like maybe immediately before that. It kind of set around then.
It seems like he's patched for a long time.
He's patched for, man, at least like the first 18 issues of the series, a year and a half of the beginning of this series.
Yeah. And
then he runs into who? Spider-Woman also is living in Madripoor. This is like Portugal or something. Everybody's buying up some real estate in Madripoor. So bizarre. But he goes and hangs out with her for a little bit because let these ladies take care of our stabbed sailor. And cut back once again. Whenever Sabretooth removes that woodpile that he left Wolverine in, Wolverine's gone and kind of given up. He's running for his life like a wounded animal, but he's beaten. And there's another one of those parallels, Ed, where we see Wolverine climbing up Spider-Woman's apartment building wall and now climbing up this cliff as he's fleeing Sabretooth.
But Sabretooth is Michael Myers.
I don't know if any stories were done with these characters like set in Madripoor. Like,
yeah, I don't think so. But thinking about it, Jubilee does connect with Wolverine in Madripoor during Extinction Agenda. Okay. And they hook up there and then go to Genosha. So That makes sense.
I don't know about if any of it makes sense.
It lines up.
I love that he's just casually smoking, sitting in their apartment.
And you know,
so
it's
mad
not...
if somebody's lighting up cigarettes like in my living room.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's a different guy. It's not Wolverine because he's got a patch on his eye.
Yeah, and everyone kind of plays along with it, which is really weird as a story piece.
Yeah.
Very bizarre. But gets to the top of this mountain that he's climbing for reasons that are a little unclear. I know I said he's fleeing Sabretooth, but also, if you're hurt, is this really the plan? But gets to the top, and who's waiting for him?
Yeah, Michael Myers himself. Look at that paste-ups.
Yeah, high-res photo, looks like. You think that's a Sienkiewicz?
Good question, man.
I mean, he's doing finishes. I don't think Buscema's photocopying that and putting it down.
That's a lot of heavy lifting. Unless it's like one good image, but it looks like a bunch of shit pasted on top of each other.
Yeah, how many guys had like a photocopier in their studio setup as like a tool that they would use?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's your Photoshop before everybody goes digital.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is 10 years before everybody's going digital, probably. 89?
Yeah, and
computers were expensive for a long time.
And we know Sienkiewicz to use Xeroxes.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet you had access to one. This is, I think, the corrupt police chief, so trying to see if he has any news on Sabretooth, and he lets it known that he knows it's his birthday, too. Everybody knows everything.
Yeah.
As sneaky as we all try to be here, doesn't work. And cut back to continuing this fight, and again, Wolverine just outclassed. Some great stuff like the fist and arms. I copied all this stuff. You know the binders we see where like you copy like a JR Daredevil? Like, I copied probably every page in this book.
Shouts to Tim Truman, creator of the War Duke from Dungeons & Dragons, and that's his character design piece right there.
And look at American Comics ad in 1989, and then take note whenever we look at like the early 90s versions where it's full color and glossy, and man, they're selling all kinds of stuff. You know, I don't see a lot of buy 3 and get a price break on this ad.
When comics were crypto.
For sure.
This is a great piece of color. Like, hit him with a kind of a finishing shot, and then you sell it with the color. Mm-hmm. Because there's also line art to correspond with that, the impact and the feeling. You know, like you don't see that, but you feel it.
Yeah. Man, Sienkiewicz is bringing so much different kind of line quality too. You know, like the outline of that burst or whatever that is, they're rough, man. It looks like he's dragging the pen across the page in the opposite way that you should. Really different stuff, you know, a tour de force in a lot of ways. Like, I wonder how much of this had an impact on me that I couldn't have registered because I didn't know any better. But I mean, like, set a stage for like, holy shit, this is a really good looking piece of illustration and a kind of slight story. A couple silhouettes as they're going on the docks. These are the guys he busted up in that first bar scene. And now they're back and they've got like machine guns. I think there's a grenade launcher. You know, I forgot about the grenades. Like they kind of, a flamethrower. Like, who's he fighting? Who are these lowlifes that are bar fighting on his birthday turn out to be, like, international arms dealers? And as he's falling, they're, like, shooting him out of the sky. He's on fire, being blown up into the air, and they're shooting him out of the sky as he fireballs into the drink, which probably not a good place to be either.
He is Jason Voorhees to the Freddy Krueger of Sabretooth.
You get a hint that there's somebody behind them. And now our next flashback. Wolverine, with one desperate move, man, takes them both off the cliff edge.
Yeah. Wile
E. Coyote style. And then Spider-Woman fishes him out of the drink. And look, it's like green and purple. So I'm telling you, man, that's dirty water have open wounds in it.
Gray water.
And before he's even up, he's like, thanks for acing the brothers, Drew. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, how does he know anything?
Yeah.
He's on fire underwater. For all he knows, they're standing at the top of the stairs.
He still has hair, too. Like, I kind of...
And it's dry. It's still in the pointy... I don't know what you call that haircut, but it's still in full form. And then Sabretooth, I guess, thinks that he killed him, and he walks away. Knocked the hair off of him in the fall. And cut back to the present for kind of like one last little bit of wrapping it up. And somebody did kill those two brothers that were after him. Certainly seems like it's Sabretooth, but we don't see any follow-up on that.
That is unmistakable Bill Sienkiewicz hand styles.
No, that's Sabretooth's handwriting.
Yeah. And the other noteworthy piece, man, is in the next couple of issues, we're going to be getting those Kevin Nolan covers, baby.
Yes. Yeah, I bought one of those at Bill and Walt's hobby shop. Missed an issue and picked that one up, man. Was so excited for it. But cool, you know, like, hey, I bought Wolverine for the next, 70 issues or something after this.
What's the pinup?
Oh, yeah, Kent Williams.
Oh, sick.
This is another one, like, I had no point of reference. I'm looking at this going, like, what is this?
Yeah.
I mean, that's some scary-looking Wolverine to begin with, but, like, for, going from what you picture a comic book to look like, a Marvel House style, and I'm getting this as my second comic going, I don't know what's going on. This thing was, like, nightmare-inducing. The nipple looks like it's on his shoulder.
Yeah, dude, just that cocked back. It's almost like he's being electrocuted. Or
Kent Williams was a bad man with a pen.
Yeah, and his take on Wolverine is unforgettable.
Yeah, I love there were a handful of these guys that would do this kind of like face and shadow Wolverines, and that was the animal version of Wolverine.
He's a fine art painter at this point, and he found the kind of diarrhea colors of the old color palette that kind of correspond with his palette. These like earth tones and like these are colors that were possible to use inside the comic, but they never used them for kind of obvious reasons. But it feels good. Yeah. It feels like a night scene, It's kind of a darker, like Caucasian flesh tone.
He did Havoc and Wolverine with John Jamuth.
We got a video.
And the Simonsons. Yes, go check out our video on that because that's a really visually pretty spectacular Marvel series. And then he did Wolverine the Killing, which is the pen and ink version of his art. So we may look at more Kent Williams as time goes by, but definitely one other video for everybody to go check out.
Fantastic comic, and the impetus for choosing this one was I was revisiting episode 1 of Cartoonist Kayfabe Wizard Magazine number 1. It showed up as a Facebook memory because November 5th is the 4th anniversary of Cartoonist Kayfabe, and you pull out this issue to talk about it. I'm like, we never did that episode. And you talk about it, this is one of your first comics. Like, this has to be a show and tell episode. Here it is. We made it happen 4 years later.
Yeah, super stylish, man. Like I said, kind of lucked into it. I feel like this is a good issue in Marvel's history, and it's just random that it was, my second comic.
We laugh and joke, man, at a comic like, oh, this is the comic that'll turn you to a comic reader. The writing of this might be a little wonky, but it might be that, like, Byzantine, Rubik's Cube of
it worked
interest,
pretty good for like over and over. Trying to decode it, trying to understand it, imagining that there's more to the Sabretooth story, and that, there's a lot of backstories implied. So that is one thing I think Claremont did good, especially with X-Men.
Yeah, totally, man. You good to go, Jimmy? Yep. Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell. We'll notify you when new vids are available. Tell the people what's out there, man.
Street Angel, Deadliest Girl Alive is back in print from Image Comics. 8 complete stories of our homeless ninja on a skateboard. Pick those up now, next time you hit a comic shop. Hulk Grand Design Monster Madness, also available in comic shops now as comic books. The oversized Treasury Edition will be in stores in early 2023, but I highly recommend you pre-order that thing now. Marvel's pushed it back a couple of times. Let's take advantage of that and let them know that they should keep doing Grand Designs, and you do that with a pre-order, so I appreciate that. And join me on patreon.com/JimRugg, where you can see a lot more of my work, and you can download a PDF collection of all of my freelance covers and annotations on how I made those and the decisions behind them.
Red Room trigger warnings. Red Room, the Antisocial Network trade paperbacks. Murder on the Dark Web for Fun and Profit is the name of the game in the Red Room universe, and each of these books contains 4 complete stories, as well as about 70 pages of additional material that won't be able to be seen anywhere else. I'm serializing new comics on my Patreon, patreon.com/edpiskor. For $3, you get the complete archive, which is over 300 pages at this point, less than a penny a page per comic. So hit up my link tree in the description below this video. You'll be able to get to all of those links and destinations, and you buying our comics is what makes these videos possible. So thank you for your patronage. What else do we have out there, Jimmy?
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, mugs, fanny pack stickers, and more at our spread shop. Link also below this video.
Another great way to support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Given those marching orders, we'll be on our way.
Read more comics.